in fennel sausage. Some of the biggest things you're going to need is some pork roast. We picked up some with bone in to cut. A tub for mixing. Cutting board. Boning knife, preferably nice and sharp. And then we are actually going to be using a KitchenAid grinding mixer today. We're going to get started with the chopping up first. Then we're going to season with salt, pepper, and fennel. And then we're going to encase it and make actual links, sausage links. So we'll see the entire process from there and go from there. So enjoy.
Okay, first things first, we're going to start by deboning the pork shoulder. You want to take it out of its packaging. We're just going to dispose of the package and then debone the loin. Now, the biggest thing about this is that you start with a very sharp knife. Having a sharp knife is going to allow for a better cutting. When you have a bone-in loin, look for the bone. In this case, ours was protruding through the side, and so we were able to start with just cutting around there to make it easier. Once we did that, we're able to dig in and remove the bone as best as possible. You want to then have a tub close by that you grabbed earlier so that you can throw your discards in there. So I'm cutting down the middle to remove the excess and get as close to the bone as possible for ease of cutting. We're going to be cutting the rest of this in smaller pieces to allow it to fit in the auger. All right, this piece will go right directly into our plastic tub for when we have to reduce it in size. Next, it's just, again, this is just a matter of trying to remove that bone as best as possible and getting as close to it and salvaging the meat from it. If you don't get as close, that's okay. You do want to look for certain things when you're cutting, specifically bean-like structures. Those are cysts or fatty skins. Some of it's good because you want to balance in your sausage, but everything else you want to take out. Again, we're going to be trimming this back down, so the important part is to debone the loin. In this case, just simply cut around it, remove as much of the meat, and salvage as much of it as possible. A lot of the cost in this is going to be from weight. So the weight of the bone does add up, as well as all the fat. So cutting all that out is going to reduce how much you actually get. I always like a technique where I'm following the line. That's why I did the initial cuts in the beginning. In this case, I'm just kind of cutting around there so you can start to see the shape of the bone itself. Once you see that, you can kind of follow along the ridge and then just outline it out. Again, you want to be careful for your fingers and go for that. Biggest thing is understanding the anatomy of the bone and where it is. Now, I've done this for years and understand that the bone itself is almost like a T shape. Okay, we're gonna just fast forward this a little bit. Keep in mind, this is very time consuming. The deboning process itself is something you want to be careful about. When you're just cutting it into strips, you can go a little faster, but you want to be careful to try and not get hurt. This is something I cannot repeat enough. Once you've successfully removed the bone from the loin itself, you're going to want to try and cut off as much as you can, but for the most part, there's several things you can do with this bone. You can actually make a beef stock with it. You could cook it off, feed it to your dogs. So we ended up just tossing it. So we placed a little box right in front of us for the immediate scraps that we're cutting off. Everything else, we're just chopping up from the big tub and cutting it into smaller strips to allow for ease of the auger, just so we can push it through easier. The next phase in making sausage is cutting all the excess off. What I mean by excess, it's not just the bones that we're removing, but we're also moving the fatty skins. If we find any cysts in the system, or if we find any rubbery membranes, we're trying to remove these for ease of cutting. So what you do is, as you see, this is some of the stuff. It's going to be very snot-like. That's the best description I have for it. But as you see, there's a big excess amount of skin on there. You want a good balance between fat and protein for the sausage casing. It just makes for a better flavor. We're going to be doing a couple rounds, so you'll see how the process will look. We're going to try and speed this through a little bit because it is very time consuming. We did end up doing multiple loins. We ended up cutting 3 full loins of protein, of meat. And so because of that, my wife joined in to help out on the cutting process. You'll see her as she helps because the casing is a 2-person job. And so in our case, we wanted to use the sharpest knife we had, so we continue with our boning knife. But you're going to want to use a butcher knife in some sort, or a chef's knife for this, just because it makes it a lot faster and it helps with your hands because of fatigue and whatnot. But we were using what we had at the moment. Okay. Once the process has been done, you've deboned the loin, you've cleaned up, you've checked for cysts, you've removed any membranes that look suspicious. You can obviously add all the cut pieces directly to your mixing tub. This is the original tub that you were putting them in. There's no need to have additional units or additional pieces. The recipe is pretty simple. You add fennel, fairly decent amount on top. Then you follow behind with salt, and then following that, pepper. You want to add enough pepper to where you would see it as it gets grinded, but not enough to where it would overpower the sausage. This is a stage where you can add any of the seasonings that you'd want. So if you'd want it spicier, you could add either paprika or red crushed pepper or any other spices that you'd want to add to it. But for the sake of this recipe being traditional Italian sausage, this is all you do. What's nice about the tub is everything gets contained and you just hand mix to get that flavor spread out. If you feel that you need to add more, you can add it at this stage. This is where a second pair of hands is helpful. Otherwise, you're constantly running back, washing your hands, and then adding more spice. Give it a good, healthy mix. And then you're ready for the next stage. Once you feel that the batch is nice and mixed, you move on to the grinding. This stage, it's quite simple. You're pretty much just grabbing the cut pieces after it's been seasoned and sending it through the auger. As you can see, our setup here is on a simple kitchen mixer, and then we have the attachment. Having a second person that helps push it down makes this a lot easier, makes it a lot more efficient, and we can kind of go through it. As you see, I'm just putting it from the tub and grinding it right back in to the tub itself, making sure to divide and making sure to get all the necessary pieces. Once you've completed the first stage of grinding, go ahead and take a piece and put it on a pan to cook off a little bit. This way you can taste it to see if it's seasoned well or not. If you have to adjust the recipe, you can remix any additional seasonings right back into the grounded meat for the next stage. After this comes packing it. My wife has set up the mixer so that we have the nozzle, and then has placed the casing over top of the nozzle itself, almost like placing a balloon. And then I slowly pack in the grounded meat that we've had in the first stage, once we've confirmed that the seasoning and the flavor is what we want it to be, and then push it through the top of the auger and feed it through the system. The second person, in this case my wife, would slowly guide the link out of the nozzle so to prevent it from breaking. If for any reason there's breakage, that's completely okay. You just have to make sure you stop and reset. Now, you want to control the speed. In our case, we're using a simple house mixer, so adjusting the speed was something we had to work on initially. However, if it was a commercial kitchen of some sort, something like this would be done at a higher speed and it'd be a little bit more controlled. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content. Hope to see you again soon.